us chains, crying across plains, crying Hussein. All together, crying Hussein. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. I stand here gripped in your absence with a tyrant, as men who feasted on your blood stand triumphant, as your daughters shake in fear and bewilderment. Oh, who taught us patience? Who will make them patient? Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Hey, upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Should their shadows be seen by these men, they shouldn't. Would they let eyes stare upon them? No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. These are your daughters, leave your teachings, they couldn't. And their screams show me forgotten you, they haven't. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Shabab! Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Brother, your memory play on each broken heart, even now as I stand here in the devil's court. The devil's court. Were you not to tell me patience, I'd break apart. Bury my soul in your grave and from life depart. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Brother, I envy those who you've allowed to mourn. I must lead them, but I was as their hearts are torn. Their hearts are torn. I hear your daughter screaming from the night till dawn. On you they lament and scream, and grief they adorn. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Oh Yazid, you think our beliefs you can distort when the teachings of gold this household have been taught. O tyrants, where are men to give us support? They've embraced death As your tyranny they've all fought upon us, chains dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Upon us, chains dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. O tyrants were Abbas to see how we're enchained. With his sword your throats he would sever vein to vein. Yet after he cried out, O self, after Hussein, he lies by the river, no eyes, and his hands slain. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein. O tyrants were Abbas to see how we're enchained, how we're enchained. With his sword your throats he would sever vein to vein. Yet after he cried out, O self, after Hussein, he lies by the river, no eyes, and his hands slain. Upon us chains, dragged across plains, crying Hussein, crying Hussein.